everyone, happy Saturday and welcome to Virtual Vegfest Live. I am Helene and we are sponsored by the Plant Based Network. And thank you to Hodo Foods for sponsoring our lives this month. We really appreciate them. And Crafters Organic, Follow Your Heart, and Orgain for donating monthly prize packs that you can win. How? Go to virtualvegfest.com, click on the little link, a little graphic that says want to win a prize and you can win prizes just by doing something as simple as subscribing to our YouTube channel, Virtual Veg Fest, liking our social media. Like, that's all you have to do and you'll be entered to win one of these really cool prize packs, which is free product and coupons and gift bags. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of really cool stuff, so really thanks to them for making those donations. And like I said, subscribe to our Virtual Veg Fest YouTube. That would be greatly appreciated. And shop our Virtual Veg Fest vendors. Let's see. If you have any questions or comments today, please put them in the little box. We'll definitely address them. And we have Nigel Osborne on, coming to us from Canada. So again, we are international. Really excited because one, not only is he like a funny guy, but he's got egg-truth.com, and he's starting dairy-truth.com and the Truth Organization, so he can expand what the truth is. And that's part of like what we're going to do here today. We're going to talk about the truth in these industries because it's important for you to know that. And yeah, it can be a little uncomfortable at times, but you know what's really uncomfortable for? The animals. So let's go get Nigel. Hey, how are you?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good, good, good.
Well, really glad that you're here. So let's start out by you letting people know who you are.
Uh, Nigel Osborne. I'm the executive director of egg-truth.com and um, soon to be dairy-truth.com, which we have not yet officially launched, but I'll get into that later on. Um, Launched egg-truth.com about, 3 years ago now. Um, I had been for a number of years looking to um, do something with my advocacy, um, do something substantive, something that was going to make a difference. Uh, and for a number of years, I was sort of drifting about, doing a lot of online advocacy. My wife had been involved with Mercy for Animals Canada. She did a number of undercover investigations up here, and I helped and supported her as much as I could. But something was lacking, and I knew I had to do more. So, and without really, I guess, thinking a lot about it, I thought, as somebody who, like a lot of people, transitioned from being omnivore to vegetarian to vegan, I think all of us say as vegans, if I had known what I know now back then about eggs and dairy, I probably would have quit those first. And that's always resonated with me because as I learned, I realized maybe I can help expedite that transition for people, especially vegetarians. And so I decided to start egg-truth.com. And the website is certainly the online presence is that's the platform, that's the main area there. We have a blog. We list products from all over the world that are egg free. We have a hidden directory, a hidden page on our website. If you sign up to our newsletter, we provide you with creative and print material that you can use in your own advocacy that is branded egg-truth.com, of course, and which I'll get into a little bit more in a bit. And just a lot of information about, eggs and nutrition and health for humans. Obviously the animal welfare piece of it. And from there, we have launched our social media channels, but our main thrust of outreach is to the non-veg world and vegetarians, and we do that primarily through using traditional methods of advertising. My background is in publishing, marketing, and I spent many, many years in outdoor advertising. So it's an area that I know well, and I know the machinations of how everything's done, from the logistics of print creative and it being disseminated. I have taught myself social media advertising and methods and strategies. I do, I think like a lot of people in this movement, look to funnelytics.org for a lot of data and information that has helped me in terms of who to target and how. So yeah, so Egg Truth has been my primary focus now for the last few years. We have been growing our social media following. We recently hired our first full-time, or not full-time, but part-time paid employee. Julie Priestmeister who is out in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, is now running our social media content. She's been a great help, and she's really embraced the role. And we hope to, in the coming months and years, continue to hire more people as budget allows. And unfortunately, given the pandemic, some of our efforts have been stalled or postponed because it hasn't been the right climate in which to spend money and donors' dollars to execute some of these advertising campaigns. But we're hoping to get back on track soon as the vaccines roll out and more and more people are out of lockdown and are outdoors and are on street level and are exposed to more and more methods of advertising like outdoor. And we're basically going to replicate the same thing for dairy-truth.com with egg-truth.com, and cover both of those very important issues.
Well, that's great. I love what you're doing because I feel it's really important. It's a topic that's not easy to
Mm-hmm.
discuss because people tend to go towards health. And yes, this is a health issue, but it's a health issue for the animals in addition
Mm-hmm.
to the consuming of the products that the animals are, providing. Well,
Right.
providing is not the right word because they're not
Yeah.
doing it willingly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd love for you to share more about. Well, one, you're in Canada, so go on the lighter side first. How are I mean, Canada is shut down because of COVID, right?
We were shut down like everybody else back in the spring of last year. Then we kind of opened up. Then, like everybody else, we had the second wave. And then over the course of winter, you know, more and more restrictions came in, curfews. We never went back into the severe lockdown that we had last year, but it's become fairly restrictive. And now they're starting to loosening things up a bit. And I think, like everyone everywhere, as vaccines become more readily available and you start getting into the millions and millions of people who are being vaccinated, it'll, and as they amend these things to deal with some of these variants, I think the spring is going to be sprung, in a major way because I think people are fed up and with the vaccines now, I think we've been hearing different messaging as to how soon it'll take. But even now, lately, it sounds like it might even be sooner rather than later. Especially as we're doing what the U.S. is doing. We've Pfizer and Moderna, and now AstraZeneca, and now Johnson and Johnson is going to be approved any day now. So there's more and more vaccines, and even if they don't prevent you from getting it, the benefit is, of course, that you have less risk of being hospitalized and dramatically reduced risk of dying from it. So, and as a 50 as a half centenarian plus a little bit person, it's always been in the back of my mind that I never thought I might do well if I caught it. So I'm just hoping that things sort of get back to some degree of normalcy soon, because it's important for us so that we can get back to getting the message out there to people and reach them. And yeah.
So the first time we spoke, just so everyone knows, the reason why I started talking to Nigel is I saw the advert for the social media position and I did send over an application for it. And Nigel
That's
was very
right.
sweet because he like forwarded it to somebody else, which was like really nice because
Yeah.
most people don't do that. And then of course I wrote to say, "Hey, do you want to come on Virtual Vegfest Live?" And
Right.
that's and we actually even before that set up like just a talk to talk about how Plant-Based Network and Egg Truth and Dairy Truth can like possibly
Hmm.
work together, and that led us to
Hmm.
today. So,
Today.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry we didn't hire you, um, but
it's
thank you
okay.
for being a good sport. And yeah, I mean, your resume came in with a bunch of others, and it was difficult who to pick. And we know my wife and I are very well connected in the animal rights community here in North America, so we often hear of people who are looking to hire. So always willing to help out. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, my purpose for being here is a blatant plug and promotion of Egg Truth. So forgive me if I seem a little, blatant about that, but oh well. Um, so, uh, but yeah, I think I'd like to, quickly share with people kind of what we do. What other than the website and the social media channels, how do you get to reach people? And I think this is always the big question with any advocacy. How can you effectively advocate? So we decided in spring of 2019 that we were going to launch big ad campaign, and it was going to be sort of a test and perhaps a template of future campaigns. So we chose Toronto because it's our backyard and it's the fourth largest market in North America. It recently usurped Chicago as the fourth largest city in North America a few years back. And so we did, between late April and late May of 2019, a major campaign that involved a number of facets. The first and the biggest was an outdoor advertising campaign. And this is the artwork that I created for a 4x6 transit shelter poster that we posted in 50 transit shelters in and around Toronto, based on a very specific demographic, again, information that we gleaned from some of the data that faunalytics.org provides. This particular poster, you can't read it all, but basically all the small print indicates a lot of the maladies and suffering and illnesses and diseases that these birds endure in egg production. These were placed on the inside of transit shelters where people sit, and they may be there for 10 or 15 minutes on average, waiting for the bus or the streetcar to come along, or light rail transit. And so they have short sight lines, long read times. And then on some of the exterior of the transit shelters, it was the exact same creative, less all the small print. So it was more promoting the website and just people to see this sort of shocking image of this hen who is in a deplorable condition. So we ran that for 4 weeks. Got huge publicity from it. The Plant-Based News out of the UK published it. I got emails and calls from people all over the world who wanted to say, "Hey, come to our city," and they wanted to get involved somehow. But at the same time as we ran this campaign during the same 4 weeks, I designed and printed. Whoops, there we go. An 8-page full color glossy booklet called Egg Free Get Started, saddle stitched. It contained some essential information, sort of an introduction as to I can't, this thing's in my way here, so hopefully you can read it. Had some welfare information on a hen that was a resident happily ever after farm sanctuary that my wife and I were involved with. My wife was the president there for quite a few years. It had some wonderful recipes in it from Esther's Kitchen, and Michael Abramson, who started Yam Chops, which is North America's first vegan butcher shop. Great chef, great. Oh my gosh, that guy's his food is delish. Some baking tips, animal welfare information on hens, and then on the back recipe for vegan egg. And the folks at Follow Your Heart were kind enough to give us a $1 off coupon on any of their products. And we printed 20,000 of those and inserted them into a Saturday home delivery of the Toronto Star, which was Canada's largest daily. We also held back around 2,500 because we did a collaboration with Anonymous for the Voiceless Cube of Truth right in the heart of Dundas Square, which is Toronto's version of Times Square, in May. Packed this night. We must have given out 700 booklets, and the videos and people stopping and engaging with all of these people. And then we did some leafleting with Vegan Outreach about a week or so later out front of some major egg-centric restaurants where eggs featured very prominently. And we also did a major social media ad campaign targeting the exact same demographics during that same 4-week period, which drove people to a website that had similar creative as the poster and information, and they could download this booklet in a color PDF form. So all of it, with the exception of the insert in the Toronto Star, the rest of it was all trackable. Sadly, though, I've learned after the fact that Follow Your Heart hadn't put a unique barcode on the booklet, so we weren't able to actually track the redemption rate on those. But a buck off is a buck off. So I mean, I don't know about you, but I would have redeemed that. So better than 5 or 10 cents off. Nah, I'm not going to do 5 or 10 cents, but $1, yeah. So hopefully it gave people an opportunity to try out some new plant-based products. And we had great response. We had a lot of emails come in, people who saw the ad and went to the website. We tracked our web analytics. We saw a huge spike during that 4-week time. And one email that I got that I'd like to quickly read, if that's okay. It's interesting. Last night I watched a movie. It was called Seberg with Kristen Stewart and Anthony Mackie, and it's about a late 60s actress, American actress, who was very popular in France. Supported the Black Panthers and the civil rights movement in the U.S. in the 60s, and she became involved with a very prominent civil rights leader. And he said in the movie, a line from the movie was, if you can change one mind, you can change the world. So with that in mind, I got this email, and it said, as in response to this campaign, I firstly want to thank you for the advertisement that you have posted in the streets in Toronto. When I first saw the ad, I was curious to know, what is this Egg Truth website and that ad that I've seen? When I surfed the website and saw what they do, especially to chicks, I started crying, and I still cry every time I remember. I have always heard about how badly animals are treated, but never truly knew how it seemed like. I have been in Syria during the war before, and I thought it was the most cruel thing I have ever seen. But now I think there are a lot of things that I haven't known yet about human cruelty. Calling human animals is actually offending the animals, not human, because even animals have a lot of mercy for each other. Some people are worse than beasts. Signed, Malik. And for those who may not know, Canada, we took in about 30,000 Syrian refugees back in 2015, just after Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister. And Malik here clearly was one of those refugees who, who knows to what she endured while she was there. But seeing this ad, she clearly linked the cruelty that humans have inflicted on other humans, and the cruelty that humans inflict on animals is really the same thing. The victims may be different, but what motivates us and what capacity that we have for cruelty is the issue. And veganism, while it focuses on animals, it really is about nonviolence. Uh, so I think it's important to keep sight of that.
Yeah, I thank you for reading that and sharing. I mean, like receiving that must have been like a wow moment. I mean, because it
Hmm.
takes you, it's layered, right? To think about what she's experienced, because we don't know what that's like, right?
No, no clue. No
No
clue.
clue,
Not our generation. No.
right? And for her to see your website and to learn about what happens to the chickens and to make that correlation.
Hmm.
Whew.
Yeah. She must have come to Canada, and despite the challenges of integrating into a completely foreign culture and society, I'm sure to be grateful to be away from daily bombings and gunfire to come here and then maybe looking around, looking at the clean streets and the friendly faces, and think, wow, what a wonderful, compassionate society. Only to learn that we all have. I don't care what the culture is. It doesn't matter what part of the world. Um, Humans are still on this path, this path of moral progress, and the center of it always is becoming less and less violent as we progress through our our evolution as a species, and um, that's why I really believe that veganism represents a hop, skip, and a jump over so much other violence and cruelty, because if we can bring ourselves to embrace empathy and compassion for non-human animals, certainly that can extend to humans. Um, and uh, and I vacillate day to day. I have days where I wake up and go, "Wow, we're making so much progress," and then the next day you're like, this will never this will never change. This will never happen. So I'm constantly back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't change what I do. It's just my reaction, my perspective. But it doesn't change my advocacy or what I do. I just keep doing it because I know there are other Maliks out there.
Right. Can you share with people? It says leave eggs off your plate for her. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why should people do that?
Um, first and foremost, I'm in it for the animals. That the animal welfare, that's the I think for many people, not all, but many people, that's what we do, why we do what we do. Um, I wanted to, again, I don't know if you can see it here, but it was called the This Is Lucy campaign. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to give her a name, and I wanted and we targeted women with this campaign, 25 to 54 professionals, post-secondary education, maybe vegetarian, but not necessarily, and certain lifestyle interests and hobbies like yoga and other, that were into health and nutrition. Because, there's three facets here. There's obviously the animal welfare piece of it, and there's evidence to show, and again, you can find this on Funnelytics website. There's evidence to show that when you present an individual animal with a name, you personalize it. You try to connect the individual to the animal, and doing so, it tends to resonate more with people. So we gave her a name. We emphasized the her because it's always the female that is the most exploited in all of animal agriculture. It's what we do to the female reproductive system, whether it's eggs, dairy, you know, and we manipulate it to such an extent that animal agriculture is really a highly misogynistic endeavor, and And I think that's why, a lot of organizations, whether it's PETA or other animal rights groups, often talk about the connection between feminism and veganism. And this is sort of where some of the intersectionality comes in with veganism. And I know there are some groups out there that aren't interested in intersectionality. They want to just, poo-poo it aside, and we don't care about people. They're very misanthropic. And look, I'm a misanthrope too, but they're really misanthropic, and they really just don't want to enter into those sort of moral equations or calculus. But you can't separate them. It's all connected. Oppression is connected, and I hope I answered your question, or did I go off on a tangent?
It's okay. I agree with you 100% that Lucy is not an it and Lucy is a she, and
Right.
how important it is to they're beings, sentient beings, and they are male and female, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to refer to them as male and female. Cows, pigs, sheep, chicken, ducks, you name it. They're
Mm-hmm.
they were born a certain sex, and that's how we need to refer to them, and it makes a difference. People kind of get shocked when you say, well, he, in regards to the cow or whatever animal, the goat, the sheep, he, not it isn't, no, he or she is. And so Lucy is a she, and
Mm-hmm.
when someone's speaking and they say that, I know that it impacts the way it's received. And that's why it's so important. Like, it's so important your campaign gave her a name, because
Mm-hmm.
when they go to eat their fried chicken later,
Mm-hmm.
they may look at the fried chicken and go, that's Lucy.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Yes.
Um, and the other area that, so sorry, I just kind of wanted to backtrack to your original
Mm-hmm.
question. So leave eggs off your plate for her. Um, we're not reducitarian. We're not, we don't engage in um, um, single issue campaigns or welfare initiatives like cage free. And people often ask us, well, why not? And there's a few reasons. One, there's so many groups out there engaged with in cage-free initiatives. Um, we really couldn't bring much to the table in that area. And of course, there's the Open Wing Alliance, which has brought a whole bunch of animal welfare groups together to promote cage-free initiatives. But and they're obviously promoting in ovo sexing and trying to get the industry to go in that direction, and they are to some degree. But it's still the females that endure the worst of it, arguably. And you know, this isn't 10 years ago. This is now. There are so many plant-based alternatives out there. I just picked up Just Eggs, the frozen flat, and
Mm-hmm.
I took them out of the package and I thought, oh, it looks a little too preformed for me. But I have to tell you, I tried it. It was delicious. I had it with a fried Gardein sausage, some Daya cheese on it with some ketchup on a toasted English muffin. Like, there's nothing I miss. I don't miss anything anymore. Now, I rarely did when I first made my transition, but there's just so much out there right now. I just would prefer to be focusing on that and trying to reach consumers to say, you know, um, this is bad for the animals. This is really, really bad for these animals. And it's also bad for you. And one of the areas that has been really hard is the nutrition side of things. The Egg Nutrition Center in the US has a budget of about $22 million dollars a year. And all they do is promote the healthfulness of eggs. And they fund studies. The egg industry has worked its tentacles into funding organizations and quasi or government organizations who give out money for nutrition research. And they're really involved in co-opting food nutrition research. And I have a page on our website called Eggs and Our Health, which I would encourage everyone to go to, because sometimes the animal welfare message isn't what resonates with people, it's the personal health. Because, humans are notoriously narcissistic. It's always about us, and, we're always about us and self-improvement and health and this and that. So I reached out to a wonderful researcher out of the University of Western Ontario, London, Canada. And his name is Dr. J. David Spence, and he's written to the World Health Organization. He's given presentations to them, to organizations in the health organizations in the US. And I reached out to him specifically because he wasn't a vegetarian or vegan. And, he wasn't part of the plant-based doctor group that we're all familiar with, Dr. Greger, Dr. Clapper, PCRM, all of those, And I knew it was risky, and I thought, well, but I did. And this guy was so helpful. Him and his team of research at the Robarts Research Institute provided me so much information and studies and research papers that I had to sit down and wrap my head around, because I'm not a scientist or a researcher. And one of his co-researchers is Dr. David Jenkins from the University of Toronto, who invented the glycemic index, who does happen to be vegan. And they have a lot of powerful data and evidence and information against the harmfulness of eggs. And he sent me back a whole bunch of information, and one of the links he sent me was a whole bunch of links saying, here, go watch these videos. And they were all Dr. Michael Greger's videos, as it turned out. So, but anyways, great page. I encourage everyone to go read it, because it is often a way to get into people is from the health and nutrition aspect. Because sometimes the welfare, they hear cage-free and they think, oh, okay, well, I'm getting cage-free eggs, they're fine now. So my guilt is gone. My guilt has been placated by the fact that I'm getting cage-free eggs, because, all these other groups are doing it and they're saying how wonderful it is, so I guess it's okay. It's not. And, on that note, and I'll turn this back to you in a second, I also have to say one of the things about cage-free initiatives that really irk me is the fact that a lot of these groups have promoted the idea that once these egg producers and egg supply chains convert all over to cage-free, it's going to drive up the costs and people are going to eat fewer eggs. That's been the rationale for a long time. And that isn't the case for two reasons. One, the conversion rate between cage-free and caged is not one-to-one. So there's a glut of eggs on the market that's going to depress the prices now for the next 5 to 7 years. And make no mistake, when Walmart and McDonald's, the two largest egg buyers in the world, convert their supply chains over to 100% cage-free, just their volume buy alone, they're going to do what Tyson and all these other organizations and Cargill have done over the years. They're going to squeeze the suppliers. The margins will shrink for them so that they can enjoy the biggest margins at the retail side of things, and it's going to keep the price of eggs low for the next decade. So cage-free is not going to ultimately, shrink the egg industry. It's simply going to just, they're going to just take the wire out of the equation, but maybe they won't be losing their feathers by rubbing up against the cages and suffering feather loss like they used to, but they're still going to be crammed into 30, 40,000 hens in a barn on litter that their foot problems are only going to increase, because cleaning the litter is going to be a problem, because they can't get into a barn with 40,000 hens every day and clean the litter. The feces and the urine is going to currently fall through the cage into the pits below. But, so it's just going to end up being other problems. And I that's why I said from the get-go, I am not going to get involved in promoting improved welfare for these animals. There's only one way out for them, and that's not to be bred and exploited in the first place.
Yeah, and it's not improved welfare. It's a misconception that when they're cage free or free range, what the only cage free. You're right.
Right.
In a warehouse, You've got 100,000 chickens now, and they don't clean up after the chickens. They can't clean up after the chickens. So when you walk in there, you can't breathe because you can't handle the smell of the ammonia. It is absolutely deplorable and disgusting, and that's where your animals are coming from. And to make them free range, they open up a little door and they let a couple of them out, and then they let them back in very briefly. And because they
For
let out five of them, they can call them
there,
free
yeah,
range.
yeah. The technicalities and the certifications are a joke, and it's all governed by the industry itself. It's voluntary. It varies from region to region, country to country. There's no standard, and even if there was, I don't want to be promoting, you know, um, what we do to these girls, because they're still going to get, they're still suffering the highest spontaneous rates of ovarian cancer and reproductive cancers of any species in the world. That's why they've been used, almost not exclusively, but by and large, as animal models in research for human ovarian cancer research, because we've exploited their reproductive systems to such a degree that their high rates of ovarian cancer, uh, other researchers have said, we should go study them because they have high rates. So great, let's see if we can find ways to suppress the rates of ovarian cancer, reproductive cancer in these birds, because they're already susceptible to high rates. So any success that we have, we would imagine would be have great success in humans. And, so they're being, tested on as a result of that too. So, um, you know, yeah, the females really, I'm also frustrated too with when people, I see things shared on other animal rights groups, social media channels about in ovo sexing, and people commenting saying, "Oh, great, the suffering is finally going to end. The horrors of maceration are going to end." And I'm like, well, no, they're not. They're just going to kill them before they're hatched. Chickens and chicks still communicate with one another when the chick is still in the egg. They communicate and chirp and make noises. There's still a level of cognition amongst chicks that are going on. So, but then again, you're still going to condemn these hens to 18 months of pure misery and deprivation, and you're going to call just because the male chicks are not going to get macerated alive a victory. I think we need to redefine what victory is in this movement, and it's I think, being held back to a great degree by many animal rights groups who um, um, still call victory what has been uh, pursued for 10, 15 years. And look at all the reports that are coming out by, Compassion in World Farming and so on. Many of these corporations aren't making their cage-free commitments. Nobody's following up. There's no oversight. There's no accountability. If some big retail chain said, okay, we'll go cage-free in 3 to 5 years, and they don't, well, now what? You got to go back out into the field, put an investigator in a farm, and come out and shame them again? Why don't we just focus our energy on not exploiting these animals and just promoting the hell out of all the egg-free alternatives, because they're so good now. This isn't 10 years ago. And I think the animal rights movement needs to evolve, as because it isn't the same. What's the same 10 years ago as it is today?
Not much. The animals
In
being
anything.
the way the animals are
Well,
treated. That's
yeah, they're
that's
just
about
treated
it.
as,
Right.
yeah. So sorry if I'm getting a little passionate. I'm getting a little red in the face because I'm getting a little intense, because this issue is obviously very passionate for me. So, and I do get a little frustrated sometimes.
No, it makes sense. I mean, for those of you who don't understand when we talk about the male chicks, remember the egg industry is a female industry, and there's
Mm-hmm.
no need for males. And when these chicks are born, because the eggs aren't all processed for us to eat as food, excuse me, they need female chicks so so they can
To keep
continue
laying.
to keep laying, and so they let some of them live except for the males because they don't need
Yeah.
them. They
They keep a few back for breeding stock,
right.
but almost all of them get dumped into these big stainless steel hoppers with these high speed spinning blades. We have video on it on our homepage of our website. If you ever want to go look, and even if you don't, share the link to friends and family in your circle who don't know or understand this. It's horrific to see for the first time. It's shocking. It's almost like you can't believe your eyes when you're watching this. But yeah, maceration is. I think maceration was something that really kind of drew me into this issue.
Yeah, when I would go into the classroom with ethical choices, I would give the students a choice. I would say, would you prefer to be ground up alive or suffocated to death? Which would
Yeah.
you choose? Because those are the two
Mm-hmm.
choices. They either ground up the baby male chicks alive, or they shove them into a bag and tie it and toss it away.
Mm-hmm.
What's your better of two evils, right? And the kids would be like,
Yeah.
I'd rather suffocate. I was like, what you want to be? I mean, how do you even make
Yeah.
it? Sometimes they'd be like, well, why can't they just let them all go free? And I was like, well, they wouldn't survive. Because
No.
you're talking about a
No.
lot of animals that you just send out into the woods that are not bred to live on their own in the woods.
No.
So,
They're so manipulated and exploited at this point that they're just completely at the mercy of the production line. Simple
right.
as that. I noticed there's a couple of comments, uh, a couple questions, if that's okay, if I can
Yeah.
uh, mention go over a couple of that. We got one from Linda. She says, "Hi, Helene and Nigel. Where's Nigel located?" Um, uh, I live. My wife and I live about 2 hours northwest of Toronto, out in the middle of nowhere, uh, in the quiet, in the woods, and we're still close to civilization. We're 2 hour drive in a year round. So yeah, we're a Canadian-based organization, and but we don't. While our first campaign was in Canada, and we had looked at doing a campaign in Chicago and Miami in 2020, which was postponed because of the pandemic. We're hoping to look. We're going to be we're active globally, but we obviously we like to work in our own backyard, and then we're going to do some stuff in the U.S. as well. And interestingly, that reminds me, when we ran this campaign, we had a lot of people contact us from different countries. We've had this poster translated into 5 languages. We have English, French, Spanish, Polish, and Italian. And we have the actual the actual high-res artwork on our website. If people want to have access to it, they can download this, they can print it themselves, and they can run their own outdoor ad campaign anywhere in the world that will take this size poster. And most transit shelters, they're pretty much the same size. Maybe they have to be slightly, but most outdoor ad companies and printing facilities can make slight adjustments in size. So, got a lot of good response from Australia. We even took this booklet and Australianized it for Melbourne Chicken Save. We mentioned, because in here we mentioned celebrities, so we wanted to mention, here it's Canadian celebrities, so we mentioned some Australian celebrities for them to give out there. On the back, we had put, instead of the coupon, we had put some information and branding for Melbourne Chicken Save. So we had amended some of these things for other groups, because we're a big fan of helping and working with other animal rights groups and collaborating. So, and anyway, Linda also mentioned about the government here, and I think we may have chatted about this earlier in our conversation, Helene. The approval of Johnson & Johnson the other day. This has brought up an issue of vaccines in the use of eggs in vaccines. And people ask me a lot, what's your view on that? Um, and I'll be honest, I struggle. Um, um, I do intend to get a vaccine. Um, but what's interesting to note is that the Oxford, I think it's the Oxford, but Pfizer and Moderna are mRNA vaccines. So they're new vaccine technology that does not use animal products in the development and testing of the vaccine, um, which I was very pleased to hear about. I'm not so sure about um, uh, the other ones. AstraZeneca, I think, uses a more of a traditional kind of vaccine in terms of how it's developed and how it works in the body. The Johnson and Johnson one, I'm not familiar with at all. Um, we like, I'm sure, like you guys in the States and in the UK and other places, may not get a choice as to what vaccine you get. I hope to, and when it comes my turn, I'm going to have the information. So I'm going to see if I can get one that isn't tested on animals or uses eggs in the process, like the Pfizer or Moderna's, and whatever else comes to market by that time. Um, but I often will remind people when they ask me that question, I'll say, um, you know, remember what the definition of veganism is, and that is to reduce the suffering of non-human animals to all practical extents possible. You do the best you can. You can't be 100% at anything in life, whether you're a scratch golfer, bowler, or a vegan. Being 100%, being perfect in everything you do is often impossible or very hard to attain. And if you can't, it doesn't mean you don't keep trying and you do better next time. You do what you can. And, when I go cut the grass in the summertime, I know there are grasshoppers and all kinds of, creatures that are, and praying mantises that probably are going to get caught up in the blades of my mower. You do the best you can. And I think that's the main message here. Susan Francis mentions, yes, she mentions that they are no longer allowed to say eggs are healthy in advertising. That was an event that occurred in the US. Dr. Greger mentions that in some of his nutritionfacts.org videos, but we also mentioned that same fact on our Eggs and Our Health page on our website. So, and it actually has some additional information there about that. So, anyone wants to know more about that can go to our website as well. And hi, Linda. I see you're from Southwestern Ontario, so hello.
Exactly. I knew that when she
Yeah.
asked the question. You moved on, so
Oh, I see.
I knew we'd address stuff when we got
Okay.
to it. So I mean that's why
Okay.
I'm not worried about the comments. I always know I have a way of tracking.
Okay.
On my
Sorry, I'll
end.
let you do that.
No, you
Yeah.
are fine. I love that. I love that you took
Okay.
the initiative. So you're doing
Okay.
great.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yes.
So I mean, there were so many other things I wanted to say, but I don't remember what they are. So it's okay. But it's an important topic. I mean, all of this is important. It's important for the animals, people's health, and people understanding exactly what happens to the animals and how the food gets to your plate. I feel like that's you shouldn't just blindly be eating food. You should know where it comes from, and that's the hard part. Is people do want to blindly just eat. It's like raising children, and the child says, "What is beef?" when they just went to like meet a cow, right? And then like mom and dad are like, "Oh, well, that's a cow. You just met a cow. You pet the cow. The cow was living and kind."
Hmm.
And now
We
it's
have a
it's this.
we have a way of sanitizing uh, the worst aspects of what we do as a species. We use words and euphemisms and terms to, I don't know, even the word slaughter. we use the word slaughter in ways that when we talk about slaughtering animals, we use it freely and openly, like there's something wrong with it. Yet, when you talk about war, and when one side commits genocide on another side, we call it a slaughter. So, in the context of human slaughter, it's a bad word. When we talk about slaughter in the context of animals, it's just another word. I find the psychology of words fascinating, and my wife is a very big proponent of how important words are and that words matter and language matters. And she's currently she left her roles for Mercy for Animals and is president of Happily Ever After to pursue her doctorate. And she's in the midst of that right now. And as conscious as she's been of the use of words, she's even more so now because uh, they they have specific meanings. And again, we talked about this before we came on, before we began streaming about, the overuse of certain words and how they can lose their meaning. And I do think that language is important for animal activists in how they communicate without the melodramatic hyperbole. There's been the issue late of a major global activist, referring to uh, what's happening to animals as the Holocaust. And he's doubled down on his use of the word despite the criticisms. And, you know, one thing that we could do more of in this movement is being more strategic rather than shock and awe. You know, you take that example of the use of the word Holocaust, and, you know, is it a Holocaust? I think you could make the argument for sure. Um, but at the end of the day, if your goal is to convince somebody to consider your position or your proposition, using a word that's going to offend them out of the gate is not going to make them open or empathetic to what it is that you have to say. You've already lost them. So rather than they being right, we need to be strategic. And I think, and even as I've expressed my position on, why we don't promote welfare or cage free and stuff, I'm sure there are some people saying, oh, he's an abolitionist. I'm not an abolitionist. I'm not a welfarist. I don't accept any of those labels. There are those in the movement who do and are called one thing or the other. Some wear it proud, some don't. We have to kind of get away from that as well too, and using labels. And at the end of the day, I don't think any of us really know what works 100%, and what works for one person might not work for somebody else. So I think you have to size up your audience, and this is what our campaigning does. We look at who the audience is, and we could have gone for a much worse image than this. This is pretty, that's the word I'm looking for. This is kind of, this pales in comparison to what some of the images there are out there. And of course, look, in outdoor advertising, there's gonna be some pushback if it gets too graphic. But you want to find that line between, come in and come closer, take a look, read it, but I don't want to offend or shock you that you just want to turn away and not look. Because if you don't look, you're not going to see. If you don't see, you're not going to think.
Thank you for bringing that up, and in a very diplomatic fashion. It has not come up so far in these live talks, but as a person who's Jewish, it it can be perceived and taken as offensive. If your goal is to bring someone onto your team, you don't start out by offending them.
No, it
Because
doesn't work. It doesn't help.
people don't like to join forces and play on people's teams that are offensive. They want to feel welcomed and with open arms and kind of the ability to have conversation, maybe some differences of opinion, but shock jock, it's been proven not to work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's playing out in front of us right now that
Yeah.
it's not working. It's dividing and dividing a community that's already divided. And again, do you want to come and hang out with people that are divided amongst divided amongst divided, or do you want to go hang out with people that kind of like join forces, come together, and are fighting for the same vision, and in a way that has facts and is based in reality, and not, I mean, yes, it can be shocking to show people the images, especially of the chicks being mutilated alive. Yeah, it's absolutely horrific. But that's what happens. That
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what happens. And if you're ready to
Yeah.
see that, you're ready to see that. If you're not, we can just talk about the health issues with like your diet. We can talk about the
Right.
impact of the planet. We can talk about the impact on the animals. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, whatever that seed is that needs to be planted, that we need to nurture and grow within whomever it is that we're talking to. This
Mm-hmm.
topic, this talk is about planting a seed for people to understand what happens to the actual animals as opposed to what happens after you eat them.
And I can't tell somebody what to do. I can't say you should do this, you should do that, or you shouldn't do this. You know, I can take to them the information and I can put it in front of them and say, here it is. Read it, watch it. Try to present it as a succinct manner as possible. And again, I know this doesn't look succinct, but when you're sitting inside of a transit shelter, you got 10, 15 minutes. You're probably looking at your phone. You're glancing up, kind of going, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And you're going to see it every day, almost 5 days a week for 30 days, or 20 days or whatever. So you're going to have plenty of chance to read it. So I think it's important that no matter what you do, um, that you think about what you're going to do first, how you're going to present it, and you might get it right. Whatever. You give it a shot. You try. You figure it out. You look at the data. You look at the statistics, and go, okay, yeah, that really worked. Wow, look at that. And okay, let's do more of that. Let's do more of the good things. And that's where I think organizations like Analytics, and I've mentioned it a few times. My wife and I, we donate to them. Um, uh, they're a wealth of information, and if you ever want to find anything, email them. They'll get back to you. They'll say, yeah, here's some studies, here's some research, or yeah, we don't know. We'll try to find it for you. Great organization that doesn't get a lot of recognition, and I think uh, they really are. And I'm saying this not because they have shared my wife's blog a couple times of late, but I certainly use them for this, and continue to use them as well for future campaigns.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Nigel. This has been, I hopefully it's been really eye-opening for a lot of people to learn about the industry and learn about Egg Truth, right? egg-truth.com. And
Mm-hmm.
all that you're doing. So thank you for all that you're doing on behalf of Lucy and all the other Lucies that are
Mm-hmm.
out there, right?
Yeah.
So seriously.
And I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank all the people that follow us on social media, um, and uh, much of the followers that we cultivated over the first few years are a lot of it vegans, and are not the consumers that we go through on these advertising campaigns, but they're people who are part of what we call the sort of the army, the network, because we'll post in videos and stories and articles, and they share it. So we're expanding the network out to as many people as possible, and without their help, without their sharing, uh, we're reaching the far as we would otherwise. So a big thank you to everybody who follows us, likes us, shares, and please go. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, I'm not sure what Julie's plate, but be on more soon. And again, we're going to be launching Dairy Truth very soon. So we'll be sharing that on Egg Truth and trying to bring people across to that organization as well. So, and thank you, Helene, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you are so welcome, and I I'm really glad that I saw that advert.
Me too.
It's,
Me
it's,
too.
there's
Me too.
so much stuff that we can do over the course
Yeah.
of education of the public and people and the world, and in the end, the who really benefits are the animals. You know, one less person who makes the decision to eat and picks up
Mm-hmm.
that Just Egg frozen patty or the Just Egg
Something.
liquid.
Anything.
Yeah,
Try it.
the
What have you got to lose?
best vegan quiche I've made is with that Just Egg.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
yes, absolutely, absolutely amazing,
Well,
amazing. So
nice. Good.
yeah,
Great. So thank you again. I look forward to chatting again. And anytime you want us to have come back, and hopefully my wife can join us next time. And
yeah.
yeah, we'll happy to come back.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks so much, Nigel. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Okay.
All
Thanks, you
right,
too.
all right, bye.
Bye bye.
Well, thank you everyone once again for joining us for Virtual Vegfest Live, our Saturday edition. Let me see, I have no idea what's happening next week because, you know, I never know what's happening. I still need to film next Thursday because things got all shifted. Actually, that's not true. No, I do. I need to film next Thursday because things had to get shifted. So I don't know who's going to be on. But on the 13th, I'm going live with Cynthia Giddings, and that'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern Time and 1 p.m. Pacific. And that would be, you know, shop Virtual Vegfest Live, subscribe to Virtual Vegfest, and let's see what else we're going to do. Remember to wear your mask. We talked about vaccinations in this live. I'm part of a vaccine trial, so I got my second shot on Thursday, and I did have a slight reaction to it yesterday. Fever, malaise, like hit by a truck feeling, and headache. My fever broke last night, and obviously I'm here today, and I feel fine. And it's interesting to be part of a trial because I feel pretty confident that I'm vaccinated, but do I know for sure? No, but you know, I definitely had an experience. So make sure you wear your mask over your nose, under your chin, very important because even if you're vaccinated, you still want to wear a mask because I still don't want to get sick from getting COVID. I might not die from it, but I don't like being sick. I wasn't happy, not feeling well yesterday. So wear it correctly. If you don't wear it over your nose, and if it renders this useless, so please make sure you wear it correctly. And if you are so inclined and you have the means, please shop and buy food from your local restaurants, plant-based vegan restaurants, plant-based vegan friendly restaurants, to help them get through the pandemic so that they can survive this. And when we can all get back and eat in person again and feel comfortable taking off a mask and being inside, it's not me, but when we are, that we can do that. And those restaurants that we truly love are still there. And that's important. So other than that, let me see. One other thing. Today I have on a Redefine Your Mind shirt. And I intentionally put this shirt on because this morning when I went through my Facebook, I saw that Medi said that Doomy is in the hospital with COVID. So let's send him healing energy. Outside of that, everyone else be safe, be kind, and I will see you next week. Promise. Bye.